I'm pleased to be here to speak to SACPA on the 50th anniversary of the University of Lethbridge, but also the 50th anniversary of SACPA, which is a cool intersection. And I had a chance, Knut gave me a copy of the Celebration magazine, and I had a chance to go through it the other day, and it was wonderful to read the stories about the creation of SACPA. I'd kind of heard bits and pieces as I came to the U of L, and heard about those first meetings with Dennis and many others that and Sam Smith that considered the creation of SACPA. So congratulations to all those that have contributed to us being here today, because it's a significant accomplishment. I'd also just like to say thanks to SACPA for the recent support of our Edward Snowden lecture that took place just recently. It was a tremendous success from my perspective. I thought to myself, unfortunately, he just wasn't a great advertisement for university education as a high school dropout. Somebody that has that kind of intellect and capacity to speak and answer questions in that manner didn't do a lot for us promoting higher education as so critical, but he is sort of an N of one, I would say. So today I'm happy to talk a little bit about the University of Lethbridge under the banner of our past, our present, and our future challenges and opportunities. And I think today is a great opportunity for me to continue to talk about the university, both in terms of where we've come from, but of course where we see ourselves going in the future. And so much of that vision for the future is very much tied up with our engagement with our on-campus and our off-campus community that is so important. So as I think about the creation of the university back in those late 60s days when I was a young lad, at least I can admit I was a young lad then, no longer, it was an amazing time. Owen Holmes writing a paper entitled, "Should There Be a University of Lethbridge?" which was, of course, a provocative piece, and was a provocative concept at the time, where the U of C had just been created a year earlier in 1966, and there was this push to create a university in southern Alberta that was not necessarily accepted widely, especially by those big bruising universities up in Calgary and Edmonton. And so it was people like Van Christou and others that had the fortitude and foresight to say, yes, there should be a University of Lethbridge in Lethbridge. But let's think a little bit about what might Lethbridge look like if there hadn't actually been a University of Lethbridge created in 1967. It's an interesting thing to muse on. Over the last 50 years, it would have meant that a whole lot of young people in Lethbridge and southern Alberta would have had to uproot themselves and find university education opportunity either in Alberta or other places around Canada and beyond. That would have created a very different face, I would argue, for Lethbridge and for southern Alberta, thinking about that many young people leaving our community and our surrounding communities, importantly, as they went off to pursue their higher education. In contrast, over the last 50 years, we've graduated over 40,000 students, so many of them coming from Lethbridge and southern Alberta, so many of them maintaining their roots here in Lethbridge, many going off, and I'll talk about that a little later when I talk about the present, but many coming back. And this is I think one of the great things about this community is it really does attract people back to it because it has such a great quality of life. So we muse about the students. Of course, we have to muse about West Lethbridge, and what would have happened if there hadn't been a University of Lethbridge created in 1967, and therefore there hadn't been a push for the city to move across the river to establish itself as a city that was on both sides of a river, which, you know, is pretty typical for cities around the world. It would have been potentially a very different kind of city that could have eventually moved more east, more north, more south, but not necessarily west. We do know now that West Lethbridge is the fastest growing part of our city, and certainly it is a great example of the extent to which the university has influenced West Lethbridge. And I think, yes. So, I mean, this slide kind of says it all, right? It shows, and in fact, we have a number of other pictures that we sometimes present in a bit of a video that shows the evolution of the university from being on the west side of Lethbridge, where there really wasn't anything, to what we see today, which is a very, very vibrant part of the city and really significantly growing. Relatedly, as we think about the impact of the university on the city, we also think about the university moving downtown and beginning to have a presence in downtown through the Penny Building and through CASA and others. So, you know, we could muse on on many different sort of fronts as to what it would have meant if the university hadn't come to pass. We could even say, what the heck would have happened to Mike Babcock's career if he hadn't won the national championship here in Lethbridge? Look at what we did for Mike Babcock's career. Who knows what would have happened? He could be, you know, coaching in some farm league in southern U.S., never having had the opportunities that he had. So we could probably point to 100, 200, 300 different people whose and thousands of people whose lives have been influenced so significantly by the fact that the university exists here today and influenced their lives. And I could go on, but of course I won't. So the history of the University of Lethbridge is one that could be interpreted through different lenses. And I was thinking about this morning when I was reflecting back on my talk. We could certainly reflect through the lens of people, as I've just done. We could talk about the Dennis Connolly's, the Brian Kolb's, the Jane O'Day's, the many, many people that came to this part of the world, not because they thought about coming to this part of the world for the university necessarily, but because they were brought to this part of the world, in some cases because of the university, like Brian Kolb, in other cases because Dennis was out on that, what do the Aussies call it? Not a trek, a walk. Is it a walk? Walkabout. And, you know, got caught in a snowstorm. You know, who'd have thunk that would create our professor who is here 50 years later. So we could look through the lens of people. We could also, of course, look through the lens of our faculties. And as I talked about Owen Holmes, you know, should there be a university, there was this great paper that was written at Waterton that really mused about what the university should be. And the musing was about creating this very vibrant liberal education-based university that had a strong commitment to scholarship. It didn't really envision a university that had professional programs. And so as you look at the evolution over the last 50 years, we started with the strong arts and science program. We moved to have a faculty of education. We moved to have nursing and management almost established at the same time. I think it was 80 and 81. We moved on to fine arts and graduate programs and health sciences. And so from those early days in 66, 67 to today, we transformed ourselves through our faculties to be a very, very different kind of institution. We, of course, could look at the whole list of alumni, those over 40,000 alumni, and say, that's what the evolution of the university is best represented through, because all you have to do, and I would encourage you to do this, is go on the list of Alumni Honor Society inductees or Alumni of the Year, and that will give you a sense of the contributions that alumni have made to this university over the last 50 years. So that, to me, is a very interesting lens. Of course, as a president, I would argue that we should at least acknowledge there are presidents and only do that. But there are presidents that do represent another way of interpreting the university, from Russell Lescu, the first president, who was acting, to our first permanent president, Sam Smith, and on to Beckel, to Woods, to Kenyon, to Tennant, to Cade. And those are different stages of the university's time, and many of those presidents, I would argue, represented different steps along the way, and certainly this has been used about in our descriptions of our history. We could also look at our chancellors, at our board chairs, each one of them representing a different time for the university and a different point at which individuals asserted leadership and had opportunities to try and influence our evolution. And of course, we could look at the university through the evolution of our academic programs. And that would be a very long list, but if you look at that and think about the beginnings of the university in the late 60s, a very strong focus on the primarily undergraduate education experience, to today, 2017, where we've maintained that strong commitment to undergraduate education, that commitment to liberal education, but at the same time have this wealth of graduate programs at both the master's and doctoral level. We can see how the academic program evolution has really transformed the university. I would encourage you to look at, on our website, the 50 Voices project, if you haven't yet done so. This was a project that was supported by our 50th Anniversary Planning Committee and led by the Centre for Oral History and Tradition at the University of Lethbridge. And it captures the stories of 50 people representing the 50 years of the evolution of the University of Lethbridge. What is really so interesting about it is it doesn't simply go to all the presidents and all the deans, etc. It actually takes a look at the whole cross-section of folks that have contributed to the evolution of the university. Staff, alumni, students, some leaders, etc. And I think gives a great picture of that evolution through the lens of people living that experience of the University of Lethbridge. So I'll end off my sort of reminiscence of the past by saying the best reminiscence is to go to the 50 Voices project, to look at those videos, those interviews, and really get a sense of that evolution. So today we are a university that is home to over 8,000 students. I think we hit our highest watermark this year, over 8,600 students. So from our early days when we were in portables on the property of Lethbridge College to today, we've evolved very significantly. As I said earlier, we have over 40,000 alumni represented around the world, and I mean around the world, that all call the University of Lethbridge their alma mater. On a yearly basis, we have anywhere from 80 to 95, 97 countries represented on our campus. And so I think if you were to ask those that envisioned the university in 1967, whether they thought there would be over 80 countries represented on our campus 50 years later, my guess is they might not have had that vision for the university because, for one thing, in the 60s in Canada, there was not this sense of internationalization for universities that there is 50 years later. So through the lens of internationalization, the university has transformed itself. And certainly when we look at the extent to which our international students contribute to the vibrancy not only of our campus but of our broader community, it's very significant and something I'm very proud of. We always have to think about, well, what has the university meant from an economic perspective, because it's one of the ways we convince governments to give us big buildings with money attached to it. And so presently, we can evaluate the economic impact in a few different ways. We create 3,444 jobs, either induced or direct. And so the induced would be not, you know, that somebody is hired at McDonald's. That would be a bit of a stretch, but that there are very direct relationships between somebody's employment and the university. We also can look at the local economic impact, which this last year was $545 million. Or we can look at it from a provincial impact, and it's this past year $1.2 billion. And don't ask me how to compute the formula. Dennis Connolly probably knows that formula. So in the question and answer, I'll turn to Dennis if that question comes up. But we do know that we have a very significant impact on the economy of Lethbridge, of Southern Alberta, of Alberta and beyond. But we also have seen the university represented, I think, in some really important ways as we've unfolded. We, you know, through the Maclean's rankings, have become really well known as a university of quality, ranking in the top 3 in the country over the last 5 years, and by Research InfoSource also being ranked in the top 3 to 5, and the Research University of the Year in 2012. So from a metrics perspective, even though many of us kind of shy away from metrics, the reality is they are one of the ways that we're measured to try and demonstrate that we are a university having an impact. So these are all sort of ways to represent the evolution of the university, but in the same way, from a historical perspective, we represent the university through people, through faculties and the like. Our present-day university is best represented through our faculty and staff, through our students, through the members of the community that contribute to the university in a variety of ways, including everyone in this room, as well as through, of course, our alumni. And so as I look at, the present-day university, I think we're in very good shape. I'm pleased that we're in a position to continue to evolve in a positive manner. I'll come to the future and some of the challenges in a moment. Haley, how's my time? Perfect. I'm ahead of schedule. I promised I would be on time. So as I look at the university, we can represent ourselves in the way that I articulated, but we can also represent ourselves in the manner at which we contribute to the broader Lethbridge, Southern Alberta, and Alberta community. And so if I think of fine arts as one example, and the extent, you go back to my musings about what would this community look like were it not for the University of Lethbridge? And I then zero in on fine arts and the arts and cultural sector here in Lethbridge. I would suggest that this would be a very different city were it not for a university that over the many years had really focused strongly on performing arts and visual arts and all the different elements of fine arts, and the extent to which that's influenced organizations like SACPA and others, I think in very significant ways. I think it is important to note. And I was struck by a conversation I had with a young man when I was new to the University of Lethbridge, and he had been a graduate of the University of Lethbridge. He was from Calgary, and I was asking him what he was doing, and he said he was working in Red Deer. And I said, "Oh, how's that going?" And he said, "Oh, it's going great." But he said, "I've really struck by the difference between Lethbridge and Red Deer, even though I didn't grow up in Lethbridge, because of," he said, "my sense of the influence that the arts has had on the community of Lethbridge as a result of the university." And that's always stuck in my brain, because some of the best stories we have are through our alumni experiences when they're both on campus, but also importantly as they leave campus, and the extent to which the university has influenced them in various ways. And relatedly, I would say, as we think about the influence of the university, one of the things that we know in talking to so many of our alumni, that liberal education has been the foundation of influence for so many young people that have gone through their academic programs at the University of Lethbridge. And many of them tell us that it might have taken them 5-7 years to finally wake up and realize what that liberal education had done for them as a young person. But most of them will tell you they woke up and realized what the influence had been. So in thinking about that, we have spent a lot of time envisioning, okay, well, what does a contemporary liberal education framework look like? And how do we help our young people not have to wake up 5 years after graduation, realize what experience they've had, but actually have a sense of it throughout their academic experience? And so that's the reason that we introduced the School of Liberal Education just a few weeks ago. It was approved by our Board of Governors, and previous to that by General Faculty's Council. And the purpose of creating the school was really to, first of all, underscore how important liberal education is to this university, and to say that not only is it important, but we're going to provide a vehicle to ensure that every single student can have the best experience through liberal education that we can possibly offer them. And historically, our liberal education has primarily been about students in other faculties taking some arts and science courses, but going forward, this is about creating a real vibrancy around students having interaction with a lot of different disciplines as a part of their academic program, and also having experiences as citizens, which is one of our four pillars of liberal education, is that experience of being a citizen while you're a student. I was just congratulating David Bowie on Dr. Bowie on his award, the Alberta Order of Excellence, and congratulations again. And when I look at Dr. Bowie's experiences as both a faculty member and as a citizen, this is what we want our young people to understand when they are undergraduate students at the University of Lethbridge, is the power of citizens making contributions so that they can make a difference, not only through their of course chosen discipline, but more broadly through contributing to their communities, both while as students, but as importantly or more importantly as they move from student to member of the community and contributor to the community. And so we look forward with great anticipation as we think about this School of Liberal Education. So now what about the future, and what are some of the opportunities for us, and what are some of the challenges? Well, Haley mentioned the Destination Project is a real exciting project for us, and in fact, just before I came here, I was dressed in jeans and steel-toed boots, and I went on a tour of our Destination Project to see how things are going, and things are going miraculous. So that is a drone flying over the Destination Project site. Thank you, Haley. Which, thanks to PCL, who has their own drone that allows them to view the project as it's unfolding. And you know, that project, Destination Phase 1, is, as Haley said, a $280 million project, and one that really will be transformative for our university, both in terms of getting our students and our faculty out of the most antiquated labs in Canada, I would argue. In fact, that was our biggest selling feature when we brought various premiers and ministers in, was just to show them our old labs, and they would all reminisce, especially those that were my age, that these looked older than the labs that they were educated in high school, right? And so that was a great way to sell the importance of the project. But the project beyond that will be a really important opportunity for us to engage elementary, junior high, high school students through Science on Display, an opportunity for the building to become a science center for Southern Alberta, so that, you know, just as Calgary has its TeleSpark, our Destination Project will be a place where families can bring their kids on Saturdays and Sundays to have science experiences, and really try and promote science as an aspiration for young people, both girls and boys. The next phase will be Destination 2, and that's what I'm spending all my time now starting to talk to the provincial government about, which is what do we do with our University Hall, and especially the elements to University Hall that will be evacuated and as they move into Destination 1. And so we have some really, I think, important things that we're thinking about. How do we support the social sciences and humanities and fine arts through that revitalization? What might a First Nations gathering space look like in the heart of University Hall? How do we support our art collection through the re-envisioning of University Hall? And you know, we can talk about some of this during the question period. Another question that we have moving forward is enrollment, and so there will be this, I think, question that we will grapple with over the next number of years. If we're at 8,600 students now and still being able to maintain, I think, a pretty good class size, student-faculty ratio, etc., what does 10,000 look like? What does 12,000 look like? What does 15,000 look like? And what does that do for the essence of the University of Lethbridge? And there are some great universities that are 8,000 students, 10,000 students. Can we hold on to that number so that we can hold on to the essence of who we are? Or will we be pushed to grow and evolve as an institution? I think that'll be questions that present day leaders and members of the community will have to muse on, but leaders into the future. And relatedly, as we continue to evolve, how do we hold on to our core values of liberal education, focus on the undergraduate experience while supporting the graduate experience, yet continue to push forward on the fronts of graduate education and professional programs and the like. And I think, again, that will challenge our musings as we contemplate how we evolve as a university. And so we are starting to muse. We are thinking about, should we pursue a program in engineering, a full-fledged school or faculty of engineering? Should we pursue a law school, as has been mused about? Should we pursue a medical school, as was mused about by a few governments ago? These will be questions that the university will have to grapple with in its future, but these are exciting things to contemplate, and I think that's what helps a university continue to evolve. And we will be faced with the ever-changing nature of technology and how technology influences how we operate as an institution. I was just up in Calgary on Saturday night for our annual thank you dinner to all of our instructors on our Calgary campus. And so the interface between Calgary and Lethbridge is through human beings on the one hand, but also through technology. And we will continue to consider how technology influences the academic programs that we offer, and whether we offer them all face-to-face, whether we consider some being offered more through distance and remote, etc. But the one thing I know for sure that we will continue to always need to consider as the core foundation of the university is recruiting and retaining good people. The University of Lethbridge is what it is today 50 years later because of all the fantastic people, both on campus and off campus, that contributed to the evolution of the university. And so as we look to the next 50 years, the challenge for the next 50 years is to recruit and retain the next 50 years of people that will continue to push the University of Lethbridge forward. And if I think about the first 50 years of people and all the different contributions they made, my aspirations and thoughts about the future are very, very positive, because I do know if we can find the first 50 years of people, the quality of people we were able to recruit and retain, I have great hope for the next 50 years. So with that, I'll just finish off by saying thank you for the opportunity to speak today. It's always wonderful to talk about the University of Lethbridge. It's an easy topic to talk about. The biggest challenge is not speaking too long because you get wound up, but I think, Haley, I stuck within the 30 minutes. So thank you very much and enjoy your lunch.